Hi, I'm Leap. I use he, him.
I'm Eric. I use he, him.
I'm Alvyn. I use he, him.
Hi, I'm Drew. I use he, him.
And I'm SHINee. I use she, her.
And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
And it's me, Jay, your DM. I use he, him. And this is Insight Check. Welcome back to part 2 of SmallFolk SmallTalk. This is a chat led by Leap. It ran a little long, so we broke it up into 2 parts. This is the second part. So if you haven't seen the first part, then go back and watch that because it's really entertaining and fun. Either way, I'm going to drop you back into the episode now and have fun.
Alvyn, I keep interrupting you. What were you going to say?
You're good. I was just going to say, in that 3-hour canceled first game conversation we had, there was a moment where the entire party, besides Haley, because Haley's too nice, was going to be the whole, we don't want to be here, we're going to leave, just to mess with Leap.
There was a moment where almost every single player was like, hey, what if none of us were invited? How funny would that be? And I was like, yeah, that would ruin Leap's game. We should do that. That would be great.
He'd show up and be like, hey, you guys want to play? We're all like, no.
See what he does.
Like, no, screw you, man. We come to your party, we look, and we leave, and we go home. Stream done.
Right. We TP the front lawn and leave. Okay, well, Leap, here's the thing. Like, okay, so you've asked us about how we came to D&D, but you somehow slipperily, like, you've neglected to describe how you got into D&D and what your first character was. And I think that that's really unfair.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. I've said it a long time ago in the podcast, but like my friends, I had a group of friends that grew up on the same street and they were playing D&D together as like a pack of 4 people since they were like 12. So they played through basically since 2nd edition onward, they were playing Dungeons and Dragons. And then I got an introduction to it in high school because they were playing in high school then. Yeah, just like everyone else. Like I had friends that were already playing and I jumped in when they were playing 3.5. I played like once in my basement. They ran like one session in my family's basement and I was like, I played a monster class. I played an Ibixian Goatman Barbarian, which was stupidly broken, insanely
strong. That sounds incredible.
Strong. It was ridiculous.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, I was like, where's the pixel art?
Yeah. I was like, they were like, okay, Sean, like, okay, Leap, you roll your thing. And I was like, okay, I did an insane amount of damage because this thing's strength bonus was so stupidly high, right? Yep.
Sure.
And it was 3.5.
And it was 3.5. And my friends are min-max monsters, right? Like I'm currently playing in a campaign and the crossbow fighter who's taken, everything that he needs to take will be like, okay, buddy, how much did you roll? He's like, I did 90 damage. And I was like, oh, Christ, right? Like this is, and people are like, oh, that was okay, right? Like they're ridiculous human beings. Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, you didn't pass the 100, man. Like, what up? Like that's
2 digits. Come on. Like,
yes.
Pshaw.
My stupid wood elf druid, who is entirely because of Amy T. Falcone in his own weird way. Like his damage is so low, but I've turned into the utility monkey and like the hit point monkey of the campaign, basically. Yeah, so I started playing a little bit then, but then I became like really into it when I was listening to like the 4th edition Penny Arcade streams.
So like everyone else,
like everybody else that we know. I remember mowing my
so
lawn.
Intrinsically tied to PA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense too, though, right? Because we all found each other based on the C team, and so like AC Inc. was. Like AC Inc. wouldn't have existed if there wasn't already a fan base for the C team. And so we all kind of found that pocket. But yeah, like, so that's like, I've been playing with those guys for a decade or more now, on and off irregularly. And it's just changed because we're all dads and we all live in different parts of Ontario now. And so it's like just way more difficult where we all used to be able to like, it was like every Thursday in one of our basements kind of thing. Right. So
with the Mountain Dew and Cheetos.
With a Mountain Dew and Cheetos, right?
Forever cursive D&D scheduling.
Well, yeah, it's insane, right? And I mean, like, we're trying to figure that out in our own games too, right? Like, unlike most streamed games, like most streamed games happen every week or every other week, like Celtic Knot, whom I cannot keep not plugging because it's a great game. Like you guys play every other Tuesday, but like for us, we're an event stream, right? Like it's a matter of trying to get as many of us to the table as possible, but we're all incredibly busy people. So finding one weekend or one day a month to get as many people together, like we're trying to figure out that for May, like right now, you know? So that's me. That's basically me in Dungeons and Dragons. And it's been cool. It's been really, really cool because I'm here now and like we're getting to do like cool stuff like that. Before we end, I want to talk about like the different casts, right? Like I want to get your guys' opinions on like what you think about the dynamics of the party and also like the people that you play with as nicely as possible because most of them aren't here. So like
SHINee's over there just rubbing her hands going, yes,
That's their fault.
my time has come.
And table 2, it's like half of us are here, so it's like,
You shall all know.
I think SHINee should go first, right? Table 1.
Chronological.
Table 1. Obviously, I love all the people that I play with in our Table 1 group, and I imagine we'll probably have some people flit in and out as they need to, but our core group, who, God, there's so many of us. We've got Boots, Cal, me, Casey, and Ember. So they're all hilarious people. And so it makes it really easy for me to, especially because that's sort of who LST was going to be anyway. She's sort of a background character. It makes it really easy for me to sort of observe and add commentary every once in a while because they do a really good job with their characters' personalities of driving things forward. And it allows LST to sort of be the weirdo that she is. So it works really well for me. And they're always checking in with me and making sure that I'm not like feeling left out or anything. And I am just sitting there watching. I'm just so happy all the time. Like they crack me up and I love the stuff they come up with. And it's really how I'm playing my character on purpose. You know, it comes off as her being pretty quiet, but it's a deliberate choice because we've got so much material at the table already. I like to make sure that my fellow players or my other players, if I'm DMing, everybody has their moments. And so with as big group as we have, I feel like they all create a lot of really fun moments. Having the brother duo is great. They can get pretty ridiculous with each other, and their recent honeypot, mouse in the honeypot story, you know, their conflict over that was hilarious. And Boots' character is always trying to help LST, even though LST is like cool being on her own. Boots is always trying to help her out and stuff, which is fun. They're all just a really good group of people, and they're good friends of mine, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, you're honest to goodness, like real person friends with Boots, and Cal was out visiting you guys recently. Like he took a trip out west to, I've been told,
jealous.
the best coast. Oh my God, right? Like I see people whom I love dearly, and I see them all in the same room together, and it's not even like at a PAX. And I was like, this is like the dream, right? This is the dream.
I was watching the Act Intoxicated stream, and I was just like, oh, I know them, and them, and them. Oh.
Yeah. It lined up really well. I just happened to, when they announced the Act stream, they were like, you know, send us a thing and you might get tickets. And I was like, give me 5 tickets. I don't know 5 people, but I'll find somebody to take with me. And it just happened that Cal was going to be there, and I got a couple extra locals to come with me. Cal stayed with me for about a week, so we got to hang out. We played D&D almost every day that he was out here. And yeah, Boots and Alora live near me, so I get to hang out with them on a pretty regular basis. But it was like a little holiday. It was like an extended PAX, but without having to go to the con every day.
Yeah.
Dealing with all that extra stuff. But yeah, it was really
cool.
So
what's it like to be like, because you play in Boots' game and you play with Cal in that game.
Yeah.
So what's it like to play with Cal, but with a different character dynamic? Because your characters are very different in those 2 streams, right? And then what's it also like to play with Boots, who is the DM of Celtic Knot, as opposed to like her running you the game?
Well, and it is a very different dynamic in Celtic Knot because Aurora, my character in that game, she ends up taking more of a leadership role than she would have expected because all of the other players are so weird. That makes it hard. So like Cal, and he spent the whole last session as a duckling or a goose that was in my bag. And we've got Chad, who plays a Myconid, who's just a giant mushroom person who follows me around. So she ends up having to kind of be the mouthpiece for everybody a lot. So it's a very different dynamic for sure. And just like everywhere else, I think we all play off of each other really well. Knowing all of them very well also, it allows the humor and the ridiculous jokes to just flow all the time. Having Cal and Chad in one game would be a crime.
Yeah.
Just be glad you didn't have AO too.
No, I don't know what we would do. The whole show would just screech to a halt. It would just be the air. It would just be the pun show from then on.
Mm-hmm.
And Boots is a fantastic DM. She does a great job both in person and digitally. I don't know how she does it with as big a group as we tend to have. Our group's whittled down a little bit recently just because some different people had some different real life things. Some of them are taking classes and stuff, and their schedules aren't lining up right now. So we're down to reasonable 5 players instead of like the 8 that we started with. So, but she does a great job balancing all of that and keeping all of those really big personalities on the same page and keeping the story flowing. So it works out really well. And you can tell that, and like a lot of us are DMs in our spare time or in different games, you could tell she plays like a DM. She understands sort of the flow of the game and tries to make sure that things and people are being involved and things are going the way that it seems like they should. It really helps both as a player in her game and as a co-player, in SmallFolk.
So, SHINee, thank you. It's so cool. And I really appreciate that you were able to be here because it's like one of the reasons why I wanted to stream was that like, it's just really cool to see different opportunities to give people the opportunities to play, right? And I remember like when Inside Check Pod was invited to stream, I just felt like euphoric, right? Like I just felt like so freaking excited to play with people who I loved a lot that I knew really well, but I'd never had a chance to play with in like a big capacity. And to then just like all of a sudden be streaming for people. It was just like, it was nuts, right?
Yeah.
And so when we started talking about a stream, I was like, okay, we need to find a way to get as many people playing as possible with a reasonable set of boundaries, right? Like, and that's when Jareka and I came up with the 3 table concept of our game, right? 2 streamed and 1 offline, which has been dope because like I've gotten to be introduced to a lot of cool characters and like just amazing parties and people have been put together. And so like now I kind of want to talk about table 2 because I knew I would love table 2. I knew I would love every table that was made, but I couldn't have guessed at how hilariously incredible the composition of table 2 is. Like table 1 is exactly like you said, SHINee, right? Like the people play off each other so well. And it's just such like a really tight composition of characters, and all of the characters are incredible like foils to each other, that the party composition is really, really neat. And table 2 has like an entirely different flavor to it. And as the DM, having both of those things brings me such joy. So guys, how's it been playing with the people at your table, right? Like, and getting to know them and playing a couple games, and you guys have hung out a little bit too, right? So what's that been like?
Well, I think first of all, Haley has been super important to the table.
Yes,
because the sensibility that she brings, to the game, I think is really important. I think she kind of grounds some of the more weird personalities that have cropped up.
She does that.
Yeah, well, but I think that's important to a good table comp. You need to have some people that are a little bit more even keeled. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of table 2's success comes from the fact that if any of us start getting kind of weird, you can always clip back to Haley, and like her character will sort of reset the level a little bit on the game, which I think is just, I think that's a good thing to have in a party. And then obviously we have Ooze and his comforting Southern accent.
Audio caramel.
It is. It's a game changer. It's frankly, I don't think the other tables have a chance really in comparison because they don't have Ooze. And I don't know what you can do without that delicious accent.
And he doesn't have his bio now, so it's like this is a whole new ball game.
What?
Oh no!
Yeah, he shaved it off.
Okay, I quit. I'm gone. Sorry. That's just
no. Stay back. Here's what we need to propose though. Without a beard, I feel like now listeners, this is an inside joke, but he once was visiting his friend who's like a real legitimate streamer, and she had these incredible cat ear headphones. And so
Yes.
I feel like if there's no beard, the cat ear headphones are a mandatory part. Like this might be a bit
I've been
mean.
saying it from the beginning that
All in
no
favor?
headphones,
start doing the
no
stream
headphones,
cosplay.
no ooze.
Would it be a catastrophe if he didn't have them?
Deeper into yourself. Go back
Where did air come from?
from whence you came.
And then obviously we've got Tom and Dunami, and Tom had a lot of hashtag real life stuff going on that was kind of getting in the way of things, but he's a very thoughtful player, and I think that his personality has meshed really well because Nox moves at a different pace than the rest of the characters, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
I think that helps break up the rhythm of the game a little bit too. So one of the things that we kind of have going for us is you've got a lot of different rhythms going on. And so from your standpoint as a storyteller, you can clip between these different players, and it changes the whole texture of the game for a little bit. And that keeps things interesting. So we might not have the same frenetic pace that some of the others Table 3 is apparently just bloodthirsty.
You know what? To their defense, like I set them up.
No, it sounds incredible. It sounds awesome. Like
intense. Yeah. Just freaking metal.
Right, but just looking at it from a storytelling perspective, I think Table 2 just has so many different paces going on that it makes for some interesting dynamics.
I don't want to take all of the airspace. Like Drew, how's it been playing like against like you and Eric have a really cool interplay. So like I would love to hear about that. But like how's it been like playing within a party made up of all of these different personalities and like people that we know from Twitter, right? Like
it's been really interesting. The cool thing for me is I don't know whether it was a product of that first kind of hangout session that we ended up getting to have, but I feel like that our table it's like we're old friends already. You know, like we show up and it's like we hang out for a little bit and it's like, okay, let's jump in and let's stream now. And we just like go in, and I feel like we all have a pretty good understanding of like the pace of how this is going to happen, and we all kind of play off of one another, and we all kind of look and are like careful in that give and take of like, okay, somebody else is having a scene, now I'm just going to hang out for a little bit, and then somebody else will offer that up to you of like, okay, well, what if we include, you in this, and then it just happens right naturally.
Yeah, with the exception of Haley, I had never met any of the people at our table. And Haley and I had only talked very briefly at the Shadow Council meetup at PAX South. The person that I had the most contact with was, Tom and Dunami, because of my personal projects on the side. But it is interesting that we are as comfortable as we are with each other. Yeah, I don't know how much of that was intentional on your part, Lee, but you definitely seem to have a good eye for putting together people that were going to work well together.
Part of it's luck. My father-in-law always says take credit when even like say, yes, I meant to do that. So part of it is luck, and part of it is also by design. Like when I was like Table 1 was set up with the people who originally showed interest in the game, right? Like that first Twitter stream of everyone who was like intensely involved. I was like, okay, if we're playing, like it was the first game before the streaming happened, right? So that was like, I knew that there would be an interest there, and they were also just people that I knew that I really wanted to play with. And it just turns out that those people were already doing things together, right? Like Embers and I and Casey were doing C-Team Raps. And then it turned out like while this was happening, Celtic Knock was also happening in the background, right? So there was like by design, like just because we were talking about it, like these people were already well suited together. And then for Table 2, it was like there were like Haley said that she wanted to play, but it's just like really her scheduling was really challenging. And I knew that she would be like an incredible player in whatever table she was in, right? And you're right, like Nutella is such a grounding force
Nutella
in that game. Oh my God. Haley as Nutella is my favorite version. I can't say like Haley's my favorite version of Haley, but Nutella like brings out such a sparkle in, I don't know, it's astounding. But then, yeah, like when I invited you, Eric, when you and I started talking, I knew I'd already been talking with Sam, with like Samotep, Tom. And knowing that you guys had been working together already made it so like, okay, that's going to be cool, right? Like you guys are already familiar with each other.
Right.
And knowing that you guys had also worked with Dunami, like you guys were closer with him than I was, made me feel comfortable reaching out to him to say like, hey, would you like to play? Like he had liked or commented on something. And I was like, this is too cool not to take the opportunity to do, right? Because I've admired his art for a really long time. And I know, and like, so I had hints of it, but yeah, the dynamic of the table really coalesced in a way that I couldn't have been more thankful for, you know, like I couldn't have designed it that way if I tried. Right. And Alvyn, you fit right in there in like in its own and Ooze as well. Right. Like Ooze, when Tom's stuff came up, I was like, well, Ooze has said that he's wanted to play. Like him and I were talking in the background, and then that opportunity just kind of arose. And Ooze, being the great guy that he was, when Tom was able to jump back in, he was like, hey man, like I'll step out now that Tom's back. But I was like, no. Like you're here now, right? Like this is important.
You're a part of this.
Yeah. There's no, you are as much a part of this as anybody else now. And the table is infinitely better for everyone who's there. Oh, right.
Yeah, we've just got so many cool people in the Shadow Council that you could throw a rock and it'd be hard not to hit another cool person who would be a good addition to the game.
They managed to do that with me, so.
Well, and I think, we have this, they alluded to it already, but there is a thread going on Discord of the characters all interacting outside of their games. So I think it'd be interesting to break up the tables too and shift them around a little bit and see what happens when some of these other characters interact with other characters.
That might be worth doing, because like the stories, I'm going to have to think about that, because the stories themselves that you're playing are meant to have like an end point, right? And like the original design, they're going longer than I thought they would, because D&D always runs this way. But like the original design is that like any person can pick up from wherever. So if like all of a sudden someone missed all of the gloaming, they could jump into Table 2's next adventure. And while the characters would be the same, and there would be some development there because characters develop the more that you play, there wouldn't be any, like this, the story arcs aren't necessarily connected thematically.
It's like
right?
You've got that, it's almost like mini-series. Same characters, but the arc will close, and then, okay, now a new arc will begin and close, and it'll, like you said, there'll be some growth, but you don't have to watch the first to get the second.
I just have such a hard time getting into streams that I want to get into, but I know that the backlog is years deep, right? And so I hope that if someone finds this and they realize that like they can jump in and just be 1 or 2 episodes behind on the current storyline, and then just like follow it from wherever without, like, there's no seasons, there's nothing like that. That doesn't matter, right? Like it's just story. Hopefully that is interesting, and hopefully that makes it a little bit more accessible.
Well, and I'd love the opportunity to play another game and find out another reason for why Iscaneus doesn't want to be somewhere. That sounds great.
God damn it, now I'm here.
Oh man.
He's just thrust into all of these situations, always never of his own design.
If literally every time he shows up, it's he didn't mean to be there and he doesn't want to be there. I think it's just great.
I like it.
And it becomes a game of why all the other characters are trying to like get him to do things.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Dweller will find a reason.
Oh, yeah. Dueler will always find a reason to have Iscaneus be around.
Oh, jeez.
Is there anything that you guys want to ask each other or me before we finish our podcast?
I'd toss out an open question, just of what is your favorite NPC or player name of like all time?
Like of SmallFolk or just of D&D in general?
D&D in general. What's favorite NPC or PC name?
That's hard. I like...
What was the fat guy that Iscaneus protected in our last game?
Bombadar Jambelly was... Yeah.
I felt such a connection to him on like a deep personal level, so I think I would have to go with him.
I really liked the foil of Iscaneus being like, I have to tell you something. Let's move. And it'd be like, okay, but I'm still eating. Like that just really...
Okay, but carry those plates so I can fill them up.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked that. That was a fun moment. But Jerry's characters, I can't name them all, but Jerry's characters are just all very interesting. Yeah, like Jerry's characters have interesting stories, so I love them more afterwards. Yeah. And then I don't know if you guys follow Critical Role, but there is, I'm gonna stop on the name, but in season 2, there is a magical store that is run by one of my favorite characters,
Pumat Soul.
Pumat Soul. And I stole Pumat Soul's voice for my kid games. I basically stole that spot, and I was like, you find this and well, hello there. Yeah. It's great to meet you. I do that voice whenever I can. Yep. It's freaking fantastic.
Yeah, I still, because SHINee was my first character and because I'm such a nerd, I did a ton of research into forest gnomes and naming conventions and all of this. So I found that, they tend to have ridiculous names, but they also tend to have multiple names. So her name technically would be Ella Harpel, but her full name, she's always gone by SHINee, and her full name, it keeps getting added to. So I've got stories for each element of her name from some point in her backstory where somebody's given her this extra nickname. So her long, ridiculous name, even though it's one of my own names, it's still one of my favorites. It's one I'm proud of because I was such a nerd and I did so much research, and I've got, her whole life basically documented through her name. So it's been pretty fun. Dope.
I love it.
I like that the name itself is just this running, history of her.
Yeah. It takes up most of my Twitter profile too, but
definitely worth it.
Characters well spent, man. I love it. How about you, Drew? You asked the question.
I actually, one of my most recent characters that I've played, my home game is kind of a weird game where we kind of decided, since scheduling is such a nightmare, we decided that we were just going to set up a guild system where somebody can post in a Facebook group and say hey, I want to DM a session, who can play? And then you just bring, and all our sessions are one shots, and then you just bring your character, and we all have kind of the same level. Anyway, my most recent character's name is Krieger Stonecutter, and he's a deep gnome druid, and he, I kind of love the name, and I kind of just love the name because his character is, well, he talks like this, and he's only got one eye. And he's not very nice. He's not very happy about anything.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, so he's my favorite as of late.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We might get 2 podcasts out of this, which is kind of useful. So we really appreciate that.
I can't believe I'm going to be on 1, so.
I like your excitement. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our SmallFolk Get to Know the Players and Get to Know the Game podcast, or podcasts, depending on what Jay does to this. As always, we would like to thank Vinswept for our music, and Amy T. Never Stand Alone, by the way, which you can find on YouTube. It's also, there's a spoken, a lyrical version of it too, which is really, really, really cool. And I would also like to thank Amy T. Falcone for our incredible social branding and our chibi faces. Without you, we would have no faces. My face is currently failing me. So thank you all for listening. If you find us on podcast, please give us a review and a rating. We would really appreciate it. Tell your grandma about us. What's she doing? Nothing. She's a grandma. She can listen. And thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
This
was
Insight
Check.
Yay! Woo! All right, Jay will figure that out. That's a Jay problem. That's not a me problem. So, Jay, I'm so sorry. Not really recording now, and Jay's going to edit this part out. No? All right, Jay, you can just edit this part, this die part out then. You'll do that. I know you will. Yep.